Hello and a big welcome to our viewers. I am Rodro Bhattacharya, Director for Brand Content and Events at Pando. And today with me, I have a very special guest with a really inspiring story. As the global economy emerges from difficult times with so many livelihoods affected, leaders such as our guest today are playing a pivotal role in guiding their teams to become more resilient. I am pleased to welcome on the show Amadou Diallo, CEO, Middle East and Africa for DHL Global Forwarding. Amadou's life and career serves as a role model for so many of us. He started working really early, at just 6 years old, helping his father run a shoe store in Dakar, the capital of Senegal. By the age of 12, he managed this store completely by himself, later expanding this business with a hotel. Amadou has studied in France and the US and worked in Germany, Singapore, and several other parts of the world. He has spent 25 years in the tourism, banking, express, and logistics industries. He is, interestingly, fluent in several languages, including English, German, French, Fulani, Wolof, and Spanish. And by the way, he's not all work. Amadou is a musician as well, who loves to sing Bob Marley covers. Grateful for the opportunities that he has received, Amadou strongly believes in giving back to the community as well. Amadou, thanks for joining us today. I think the first thing I'd like to ask you is about your leadership style, especially in such times. You are managing teams across geographies during a very turbulent period, especially in logistics. As a leader, how do you inspire and rally your teams for a higher purpose?
So first of all, thank you, Rudra, for having me. It's a big privilege for me to be able to share this platform with you, but also to have an opportunity to share knowledge or experiences or whatever with many of your viewers. So what inspires me. So I think life is made of made out of a lot of encounters. So I have had the opportunity or chance to grow up in a village in the south of Senegal, and I think that for people who grow up in urban cities, that's an opportunity that they don't have, and I think it's a real luck for me to have been able to grow with my grandmother in Kolda, is in the south of Senegal. I have had the opportunity, yes, to work in and study in some places in Europe, but also, to live in Asia and to visit beautiful places like Pune in India, or beautiful places like, Hanoi or Papua New Guinea in Leh, or some other remote places in Pakistan. So, and that's a lot of encounters. And then when you have those type of encounters, you always meet people who are very humble and living in the small city and that have never moved out of small city, that have a lot of wisdom to share.
Right.
So, and for me, my life has been, an opportunity to meet many young, old, wise people from many walks of life, and they all have given me a little bit of energy and of wisdom that I carry along with me. So my inspiration is really coming from all the people that I meet, because the purpose of our organization is called Connecting People, Improving Lives. And my own is that whenever I connect with people, I improve my knowledge, my love, my wisdoms, but also the works of my life and how I can interact and positively engage with others.
Fantastic. And this is great, right? Meeting and learning from so many different people and sort of combining all that knowledge and using it in your own life, right? I mean, and that sort of insight, that sort of learning. Before we come to to my thoughts on supply chain, and my questions for you, tell us a bit about how important giving back to the community is for you, from where you came from, where you are today. How do you think you can help communities? Why is that important in today's times?
Well, so I when I was talking about my grandmother used to be the midwife or whatever you call it, in the village in which she was living in Gadapara. It's called the borders of the rice fields. That's where she was living. And she used to be the one that is helping all the people in those families, because there were no hospitals, no facilities actually to be able to help in terms of healthcare. And from there, I learned that you can succeed many things in many things in life. So I've been living in London, so you can go and have fun when you are very young. You can plan to travel. I've been with a lot of American fans, who were traveling across the globe with their backpack because they wanted to discover every corner of the earth. But when you come from humble beginnings, you always have that humble beginning in your mind and in your heart. And therefore, you always know that, whatever you achieve and whatever you reach or whatever you create, whatever joy you have, it is always good if you share with those people that are coming from the same humble corners, because you can inspire or help or learn from some of them to be able to contaminate even more people with positivity. So for me, going to work is important, yes, to earn a living. But what is most important in life is, how much impact you can have on other people, how much, sparkling eyes you can share with other people so that they can have a positive time, positive moments in their day. How much hope you can share with other people because you can enlighten them in something that you're thinking about, but as much you will be getting. So because if you contaminate somebody with positivity, they give you back a lot of energy with their smile, with their eyes, with their heart, and that keeps you going, because we're not keeping going because we have so much volumes that we're moving or so much money in the bank account or whatsoever. We keep moving because we are surrounded by people who are happy, positive, or hopeful to change something in the future. And for me, that is really what gives me energy. That's why I like, it's not giving back to society. I like giving back. It's a ping pong. You're giving back something that comes back to you. So, it gives me a lot of wisdom and happiness too.
That's fantastic. And if you're right, if each one of us contribute in our own way, we can actually make a lot of difference. It's not possible for the governments of the world to really make the impact. Coming to supply chain, an industry both of us are a part of, and you're a senior leader, worked across so many different geographies. In the past 2 years, saw choke points across the global supply chain, right? Containers, shipping, ports, and truck movement. You must have studied this. You must have dealt with some of this. What is in your mind? What was the real problem? Where was the real block or bottleneck coming from?
So, usually when we talk about problems, problems are made by us.
Yeah.
In the different corners that we work, either because we are not prepared, or we didn't plan it properly, or we didn't organize ourselves properly, or we are acting in panic mode. And what happened during the COVID period is that, we had the combination of all. Yeah. So we were not well prepared. We had a lot of government acting in panic mode, so changing regulations every 3 days for customs processes, for health check processes. And that has created a lot of, challenges across the globe. So, we had a lot of challenges to move shipments out of China because nobody was able to go to China. And we had a lot of challenges to process those shipments when they arrived in America because people were not working. And then once they were processed, there was a lot of challenges to deliver to the industry platform because they were closed. So, and that has created, a stack up of challenges that has now still staying with us, right? So, but for me, when I look at that challenge, I used to be in India in 2008, 2009 in Mumbai, when the bridge was not ready from the airport to be able to go downtown. And then, you had 5 cars, stuck on the highway, and the traffic jam. But the people who were sitting on those cars, they never gave up. They didn't walk out of the cars and say, I'm not going to make it. This is too much. And the same is for me, in my country, in all of our countries in Africa, we have been exposed to much harder challenges than just a container that is not available in our lives. So, and that's why I think that, these are all man-made problems, which also can be solved by men and women, in the society. So yes, we have a lot of challenges because we consume a lot. We have a lot of challenges because we demand things and we want to be there after tomorrow. Yes, we have a lot of challenges because there's not enough belly capacity in the aviation extra. But at the end of the day, if we all live wisely, we look at the challenges that we're talking about, and we look at people who really have challenges, like the 65 million refugees that are living across Africa, or the people that are stuck in Turkey, or what is just happening now in Ukraine, then it is relatively comfortable challenges compared to what happens in life.
Yeah. Those are simpler challenges to relatively deal with if you really compare with what they're going through. True. Coming to the understanding of some of your customers, right? I mean, given the experience of acute input shortages of the past 2 years that many of your customers would have faced, and you've been helping them solve some of those. How are manufacturers building resilience into their supply chains? What is really changing in the entire global supply chain landscape as a result of the experience of the past 2 years? And what do you see become permanent?
So I think that there are different challenges for different industry sectors. So, during during the COVID time, people stopped driving a lot of cars and being mobile, so the oil price was going down.
Yeah.
Because people stopped working, there was a lot less semiconductors available so that people can produce cars. So and you have this connectivity with the technology not being available. Everybody wanted to have smartphones or smart devices so that they can be able to engage with society. So a peak in demand, and then stores being not open, people buying a lot of things online, so that it has to be, the development of e-commerce, so that it has to be delivered by many people that are sometimes running on bikes. So you have seen an explosion of bike utilization across the globe because of the e-commerce, and that was not only for materials that are needed, that was also sometimes for food, because people were not going to shopping, so they were buying online food. So you have a real shift that has happened in terms of utilizing technology and really, improving the service that needs to be delivered on the last mile side, because it was not going to distribution centers, but rather directly to consumers. Yeah. So that is one challenge that everybody has been confronted with. The consequence of which has been that now you have a lot of people developing more e-commerce solutions. You have a lot of companies creating digital platforms so that they can connect their systems to other systems without having too much paper, which is good for the environment, because before we used to cut trees, print 5 pages, and then have it signed 75,000 times and then dropped somewhere in the archive that nobody looks at. Now this is sort of getting, going away. So, and the planning and forecasting is becoming much, much better, because if you have to do direct to consumer solutions, you really need to know how much you have to ship, because if it is not ordered by the consumer, they don't take it. So it has to be returned.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of efficiency that has happened. And I think that for the manufacturers, their planning and the consciousness that they need to have regional distribution centers rather than just one global distribution center in one country has grown quite a bit. And people have understood, that is, I think, that the most fundamental change. People have understood how essential logistics is to society. And, if you saw the trucks being, parked at the White House, or trucks being escorted in Israel or in Korea or in all these places because they were just bringing vaccines or masks. So, it has also changed the importance and the feel of logistics inside in our society, because before it was not considered as an essential service. Yeah. Nowadays, our industry has become an essential service, and I think all the customers have understood it.
That's a fantastic point. I think the realization of how important logistics is somewhat of it's really the lifeblood of any economy, right? I mean, for anything to run, I think that's come about. Supply chain professionals, as we see, are now closer to the boardroom, getting a boardroom seat at many levels, and technology. I think that's something that you really touched upon, right? How has that transformed? And I think transformed for the good. I don't think we're going to go step back from this. It's only going forward from here. The efficiency that has been brought about. Little into the current sort of state of things, we see some of the challenges of the past 6 to 8 months to a year somewhat starting to ease. Right? We see container prices, for example, which is an indicator, are starting to ease. Right? They reached a peak and they've started slowly dropping back. At least that's what reports say. So. When do you think freight rates will also start going down and help control inflation? Because today, one of the biggest challenges most manufacturers are pointing towards is saying that, freight rates are extremely high. We are not able to control that. Thereby, our pricing has also increased till a certain amount. So do you think freight rates are going to go down with container rates, shipping, etc., starting to sort of see a better situation?
I think that, at a certain point in time, when we will get to a normalized situation, they will go a little down, but not a lot. I think that, our prices are made by supply and demand, but also by the willingness to pay for the service that people are getting.
Right.
And that willingness to pay has changed, because now people know when they're buying something that is essential for them, that their willingness to pay more for the service so that they can get it in time is much higher than it used to be in the past. Because in the past, you were always only dealing with procurement people whose target was to reduce costs. Now you're dealing a lot with marketing departments that are dealing with procurement people whose target is to get their service or solutions or goods to their customers.
Yeah.
So the customer satisfaction, impact is very high. And the world has changed, so we have a lot of new consumers. So, we have a lot of new consumers in Southeast Asia, in the SAARC region, in all regions in Africa. and they're all competing against the old consumers that used to be driving demand and prices in the world market. So I think that there is a tremendous change that is happening and a shift in production platform that is happening. However, the prices, they will go down, but also the shipping lines, they will no more be working at loss for 2-3 years as it was historically, because I think that DNA is gone.
Fantastic. I think this is a very interesting thing you said. I mean, customer experience, I think, has become really important. It's not about costs, just costs anymore. I mean, driving down cost used to be the topmost thing on the agenda within supply chains. That's not true anymore as a result of the past few years. And technology has played a significant role in making that happen, right? So my next question, what role can technology play in better visibility? You mentioned efficiency. And also saving costs, right, across supply chain. What has been your experience in terms of technology adoption over the past few years? How has it accelerated as a result of the pandemic?
Well, so I can tell so in 2005, we were talking at the DHL, in my company, we were talking about the, 3 mega trends. One of the 3 was globalization. The other one was digitization. So, and then in the past, we all have been always talking about digitization, but it was all going slowly because it has to go through the corporate boards, and then all these decision making, and then the legal time was taking sometimes the risk assessment and procurement. But because of COVID, everybody has to accelerate the digitization because there was no time to, question, paralyzed by analyzing, as I call it.
Right.
So, and what has changed is that most of the companies that are working in supply chain, but also most of the companies that are working in e-commerce, have really accelerated digitization. So I know that, for example, in my own region, in the Middle East and Africa region, we implemented our digital tools across all of our countries in 9 months.
Wow.
And before, when we used to implement project, we would send a project team, they do an assessment, then they do a physical training. We didn't have all of these people traveling around and doing this physical assessment and training. We really did it remotely.
It wasn't possible anymore, right? Yeah, it wasn't possible.
It wasn't possible, yeah. Exactly. So we all have learned how to do implementations remotely, which is less costly, more efficient. And secondly, we all have learned that, if you want to put technology into play, you don't need to wait for too much, engineering questions, because most of the time we have been, as industries, paralyzing ourselves by analyzing many useless stuff. So that is something that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is the importance of data and data security has also totally changed, because now we know that decisions made by feeling or instinct, they are good sometimes, but for business, it is systematically not good. So, we really have now a tendency to use more data to be smarter in terms of how we are making our decisions, and the use of bots. We have a lot of colleagues. We have around 4,000 colleagues working in Mumbai and Chennai for our own organization that help us with bots that they're using to be able to be more efficient in terms of time to respond to customers. And that has spread across, not only the logistics industry, but across many other industries. So I think that the world has learned to become much more efficient, much more digitized, much more data-driven than it was the case before, because we were all comfortably lazy in terms of using the data.
Yeah, I mean, the use case, the need, the urgency, I think really happened now. And I think also at some levels, I would like to believe that we were lucky in some ways that these tools were available by the time the pandemic hit. So we could switch over so fast. Imagine maybe 15 years before or 20 years before if we were in such a situation, right? Would we be able to move so fast? I don't know. But it's tough. My next question is about the people aspect, right? Labor shortage, I think, has affected supply chains in many parts of the world. Several markets like the US, for example, is in a crisis. There are several conflicting reports that say there are more jobs available, but people are leaving the jobs at the same time, right? And that's created sort of a labor shortage. Supply chain is, of course, one area that has suffered, but then there are other places as well. When and how do you see this easing? Is it a challenge at DHL as well that you've seen? And when do you think such a situation will ease?
Yeah, so I think that, despite all the technology, we are people, human beings working in the world, right? And then connecting with other human beings. And yes, I think that it is very much essential that we, learn and push towards making sure that our people are safe. across the globe, wherever we're working from. It is important that we learn and push towards making sure that our people are having, a good well-being, in terms of how they are living their lives, to have the flexibility to let them come to an office or not come to an office when it, works for them, rather than just have rules that have been, implemented since we invented bureaucracy, but not adapted to the people. And we also have learned to check and organize and support the fitness of all the people that are working in our organizations. And all these elements have nothing to do with compensation. It's really caring for people. Caring for people, making sure that the work environment is, an environment which is attractive and makes them happy, but making sure that all the working conditions are also, flexible enough so that every human being and individual can find themselves and then, unlock their own potential. So that is something that we have seen across the globe. Now, the challenges that we have, in terms of labor shortage, I mean, if you look geopolitically, what has happened, many countries started closing their borders before COVID. Because of nationalist policies, and then we don't want to have migrants, we don't want to have refugees, and all of this stuff. So, and I think that, this is a little bit of a payback when you close your borders, because, the refugees that are coming to US are talents that are available in the market. The people who like to go there isn't even not being refugees. We have a lot of young engineers from India, from Africa, from Europe, from Latin America that want to live in America because for them it is their dream. So they don't just want to live there to watch the Liberty statue. They want to live there and contribute to the society in the US. So closing the borders is certainly one way of losing a lot of resources. And the second thing is that, closing the borders or, blocking the way of having more diverse population in your market reduces the creativity. So most of the large companies that are successful in the globe are companies that have been created by people who don't come from the market where those companies have been started from. So, you can take Elon Musk, you can take the people who invented all of the tech companies. So they're mostly not coming from those local markets. All the largest companies of the globe are today run by people who come from India, right? You can take a set of them, right? And they are all working from many different places in the globe. So to believe that if you close your borders and then you just restrict yourself to your village, that you will have the creativity that will allow you to be able to conquer the world is something of the past. And for me, it is just like living pre-COVID times or pre-COVID times, when you are sort of locking and that is really closing off on the opportunity to gain talents. The opportunity for us is that we are having more talents available in our own markets. So, and that is creating more opportunities for us to be able to have manufacturing platforms in the Middle East, Africa, and India, to have production platform in our own market, to create job opportunities in our own market, and to not lose those talents that usually used to be hungry and and curious to go and work in Asia and all these places. So it's a challenge for America. It's an opportunity for us. So I think that we should look at it from both angles. I think it's good that it is an opportunity for us.
No, I think this is a very, very frank and candid observation. I actually didn't think of this angle, but very true. I mean, they sort of kick themselves in their own foot, right, by doing that. So a little bit more macro, right? I mean, now that we are in that space, what geopolitical and economic risks continue to threaten global supply chains today? Of course, Ukraine is the elephant in the room. The situation there, but if you look at it on a global scenario, what are these situations that you think are affecting global supply chains from a geopolitical situation level?
I think that recently we all talk about the ESG, so we talk a lot about sustainability,
right?
And I think that there is really, when you look at the level of pollution that exists in the globe, and what all the scientists talk about, when they're talking about the CO2 emissions, I think it is really highly urgent that we create sustainable supply chain solutions, because we are the ones that are using trucks and planes and ships, and motorbikes, whatever you take, to be able to distribute goods, and that consumes quite a lot of, participate quite a lot in terms of CO2. So that is something that certainly I would see as a big challenge that we need to tackle. The second one, is really related to us helping as companies to consider ourselves as active part of society and not just leave to politicians and NGOs, the role of changing the planet. because we have a bigger role to play in making the world a better place. And I think that, taking that into our own responsibility and making sure that our organizations are not just profit driven, but they are also purpose driven and driven towards making the world a better place is super important. And lastly, pushing for diversity, connectivity between people. If we look at the war and all the wars that are happening and all the millions of refugees that are going everywhere, it is mostly based on lack of education, lack of information, and lack of connectivity between the people. And I think that we really need to organize that all of our organizations, businesses in which we work, that they're totally diverse, because there's nothing that precludes that, an Indian CEO would not do better in Senegal than a Senegalese CEO that is sitting in that country, or vice versa.
Right.
And there's nothing that precludes that a Ukrainian CEO will not do better in South Africa than a South African CEO in Ukraine. But that's the same thing, in Russia, in the US, in every other country. So we have one planet, we are one people. And I think it is important that all of our companies make their regimes and governments understand that, we are globally connected. We live in one universe. There is not planet B. So therefore, we really need to take care of our planet and make it a better place.
Yeah. But Mr. Musk is working on a plan B, though. Hopefully, he'll be successful with his mission to Mars. But anyway, So my last question, right, to you, given and this is about your core geography, the Middle East and North Africa. So, given the unique global position of Middle East and the Africa region, right, in terms of trade, and some great infrastructure that the region already has. How do you think its role in global supply chains is evolving and changing in the current sort of scenario?
Well, so, first of all, I think that most of the infrastructure development that is taking place, I know that, the president of America now has spent some trillions to, check and refit all the streets of US and bridges. But most of the new infrastructure that is being built in the Middle East and Africa region, in the emerging markets. Yeah. Secondly, the youngest people in the globe are living in the emerging markets.
Right.
In our markets. Thirdly, the hungriest people, hungry in terms of wanting to do something, make something out of their lives, are living in our markets, because they're all coming from a not so satisfying situation, and they want to make their situation a better situation. Yeah. And I think that the consolidation of the better situation of every one of the 1.6 billion people that are living in our market will multiply it by 1.6 billion and make our situation in the market a much better situation, because everybody is hungry to make a better life out of their own individual situation. And therefore, I look at it as a huge opportunity. Secondly, I look at it as a huge opportunity for sustainability. Previously, everything that Americas and Europe wanted was being manufactured out of Asia and flown and sailed. There are much closer places to Europe and to America and to Asia. And that is really our region, because we are closer to all of these regions. Yeah. We could produce and service all of these regions with less CO2 emission. We could produce and service all of these regions with young and dynamic people. We could produce and change the way things have been done in the world in our region and service the entire globe, because we have the most arable land. We can produce more agricultural goods. We have the most innovative young people, because they are the ones that are hungry for future innovations. And we have the highest opportunity, because they're all coming from a very challenging situation. So I think that, everything for me is raining towards our region becoming, a good pole for a better world and a better balanced world here.
Very, very, very well put, and very interesting. What you just said, right? And the fact that this young population is so great at technology adoption that we have seen in recent times makes the entire process far more efficient than it has been, right? In the past. Fantastic, Amadou. I really enjoyed this conversation. A lot of good, candid insights for me. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was my pleasure to speak to you. I'm surely inspired by your experience, wisdom, and insight. And to our viewers, thanks for watching. We will soon be back with another episode in our series. Thank you.